Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to News Dose, and it's definitely been a very interesting Monday to start the week off with. Of course, we got yet another Switch successor rumor because, I mean, why not? Just kind of add it to the ever-growing list of Switch 2 rumors. But people are going crazy over this one specifically because it not only comes from a reputable company, but it could allegedly reveal the release window as well. Now, I have my own thoughts about all of this, so just go and sit tight, and we'll get into that as well as a surprising result for Xbox's latest game, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. Now, I just posted a review this morning, so if you missed that video, make sure to go check it out, but I mean, its early results is somewhat surprising to the point that some fans are a little bit concerned. So stick around, and we'll get into that situation and what could possibly be happening here. Let's just go and get right into things, though, starting off with a new Game Boy Advance-esque console. Yes, we're talking about a new Game Boy Advance-esque console in the year of 2024. I think that's pretty cool. And this comes from Anbernic, out of all companies. This is their latest form factor to their RGXX lineup. Now, if you're unaware of what this company does, they make affordable emulation consoles. They seemingly put out a new form factor about every month or so. They already did a 3.5-inch Game Boy type of console. There was a 4-inch one as well. And now they're going to tackle the original Game Boy Advance. And there's one specific reason that I think this is one of their most attractive options yet. The RG34XX sports a 3.5-inch screen with a 3:2 aspect ratio and a resolution of 720 by 480. Now, that's particularly exciting because its aspect ratio is the same as the Game Boy Advance, and its resolution is exactly 3 times as much. So what that means is that it will have access to pixel-perfect integer scaling, which makes it one of the most attractive options to play Game Boy Advance games. I mean, Neo recently released the Micro Pocket, which has a 4 times integer scale for GBA games. And you know, that sounds great and everything, but it's also a $200+ device, whereas the Anbernic RG34XX will come in right around that $60 to $70 price tag. So, you know, I'd say if anything else here, if you like Game Boy Advance games, as I very much do, I do have a soft spot for the Game Boy Advance, well, then you might want to keep this one on your radar. It's actually set to release on December 16th, so this is right around the corner. And I mean, if you're on the fence, what I personally do is wait for somebody like Retro Game Core to post his review. He does an absolutely fantastic job at reviewing these type of devices. I can't recommend him enough. And he already mentioned that he will do the same for the RG34XX. I mean, honestly, I might actually get this one myself. And, you know, if I do, I might do a video on it myself because this really does seem right up my alley. Now, here's something that I wasn't expecting, and I'm not exactly sure how I feel about this one just yet. So, Croc Team just announced a remake for Talos Principle titled Reawakened. Now, this will include its expansions, a puzzle editor, and it'll release sometime in 2025. The entire game will be rebuilt using Unreal Engine 5, and I mean, when you see its visuals, it looks good compared to the original game. At the same time, though, I don't really think that this is a game that necessarily needs a remake. I mean, it's a fantastic game, and it's probably one of the best puzzle games ever made. If you've never played it, I'd easily recommend it. It's got some Portal-esque vibes to it, but even though it's a 10-year-old game, which, you know, that's honestly kind of surprising to me in its own, it doesn't really feel like it's been 10 years, but even so, it still looks good to this day. So I almost view this remake in the same vein that I did for Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons and its remake that released just earlier this year. The original was a great game, but it still holds up, so a remake just isn't really needed. Now, that's only my opinion, and maybe you feel differently, but for me, I do love remakes when it's for the right game, but I don't necessarily look at this specific announcement as anything too exciting. Let me know if you feel differently, though, in the comments below. Now, a remaster that I am excited about, though, is Croc HD. Now, this is an old PlayStation 1 game, and even though it doesn't necessarily get the same amount of love as other platformers from that generation, it still had a large impact at that time. The first game ended up selling more than 3 million copies, which I'd say that's very impressive. So, I mean, yeah, this is a series that a lot of fans have fond memories of, and the remaster has a chance to make it feel just so much better than what it used to, thanks to its new dual analog controls. That alone could be a game changer for a game like this. But unfortunately, Argonaut confirmed that Croc HD has been delayed into Q1 of 2025. I mean, I don't think that that's necessarily surprising, just given that we only have a few weeks left of 2024. But yeah, you can now expect its release for sometime in Q1 of next year. As always, I'll keep you updated as soon as we hear more. Okay, so let's go and talk about Xbox's big new release, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. I legitimately think that this is one of the most refreshing AAA games that I've played in years. So this is a game that Xbox should be parading around right now, or at least you would think. And that's one of the things about this release, because it doesn't really feel like there's as much marketing as you would expect for a game of this caliber. And that could maybe lean into this topic a little bit. You know, there is a question of whether or not Microsoft is doing enough to bring attention to what appears to be one of their best games for this generation. I mean, if anything else, it's probably the best Indiana Jones experience in 35 years. So it just kind of feels like this could be a recipe for a big-time hit, which is all the more reason that its early results on Steam has taken some people aback. If you look over on Steam database, as of this recording, it so far has topped out at just 12,000 concurrent players. And that doesn't really seem overly impressive for a big AAA launch of this caliber. And right away, I know some people are going to point out that, you know, it's a day one Game Pass game. And of course, that's going to have an impact. And while all of that's true, even if you compare it to other day one Game Pass launches this year, it's still on the lower end of the spectrum. You look at something like Stalker 2, and the peak high for that game was 121,000. Then there was Persona 3 Royal, and that hit 45,000. Then there was Flight Simulator at 24,000, and then Hellblade 2, that was on the low end, that is at 4,000. Now, we can sit here and say that those are bigger IP in the gaming space specifically, but then that kind of begs the question: is Indiana Jones still a big IP in the year of 2024, especially, again, in the gaming space where it doesn't have the same pedigree? The thing is that a lot of us view Indiana Jones as one of the most beloved franchises ever made. But the fact is that it's been 35 years since the last great movie. And you almost have to kind of wonder about the younger audience, which hasn't had a lot of exposure to this franchise with actual quality content. So with that in mind, you just almost have to wonder if that was one of the reasons that Microsoft shifted the Great Circle to a timed exclusive approach. Did they become aware that maybe the audience for Indiana Jones isn't quite as lucrative as it once was? So maybe that's why they decided a PlayStation release could be beneficial. Now, that's just me speculating, and we could also be jumping the gun a little bit early here. It's also important to understand that this is just day one, and it's on a Monday. Typically concurrent player counts are at their highest during the weekend when people have more free time to play. So we'll kind of see how its numbers progress as the week continues on. And admittedly, there are a few other big releases that could be impacting just how many eyeballs are currently on this game. Path of Exile 2 and also Marvel Rivals just launched, and those are massive in the PC space. So maybe those could have impacted its numbers a little bit. And, of course, there was also some controversy leading up into the Great Circle's release. Maybe that's caused some people to be a little bit more hesitant to whether or not they want to buy into Indiana Jones. But yeah, 12,000 just doesn't seem like an overly impressive number. At the end of the day, though, we don't really know what Microsoft's expectations is with this game. Maybe this falls within their expectations. Maybe it's performing a lot better on Xbox. I mean, there's a lot of things that we don't know, but that's all the more reason that I want to ask you all. How do you all feel about this situation? Do you find these launch numbers to be concerning, or do you think that people are just simply overreacting? Let me hear your thoughts about all of this in the comments below. Now, what I absolutely think is an overreaction, though, is the latest rumor for the Nintendo Switch successor. I mean, on one side, this is a really interesting development, but I don't think that it necessarily reveals quite as much as what some people are making it out to be. So what's happening here is that Satisfy announced a new Switch successor grip accessory, ZenGrip 2. Now, you can already pre-order it on their website, and they launched a video and everything, which seemingly had a blurred-out Switch 2 included. But where fans are really going crazy with all of this is that Satisfy said to anticipate its shipping in early spring. Now, if you don't know who Satisfy is and why people are going crazy about this, that's because Satisfy already has one of the most popular accessories for the current Switch, the ZenGrip. So this is definitely a company that could potentially be privy to Switch 2 information, depending on if Nintendo revealed any kind of details to third-party partners. I mean, that seems fairly plausible, but again, I still think people should pump their brakes a little bit, and let me just kind of explain why. To me, and maybe this is just because I'm suspicious about this type of stuff, I'm a little suspicious because I think this comes off as a marketing stunt to get a ton of free publicity. With this early pre-order announcement, now everybody and their mother is talking about Satisfy and their accessory. This is one of the first big companies to have a popular accessory on the way for a very anticipated console. It's honestly a brilliant way to market an accessory. However, the details that they gave are fairly vague, and it kind of fits in with what we've been hearing about the Switch successor. There's been a lot of chatter that the Switch 2 will release in spring. So, to me, I just kind of look at this and think, yeah, this could easily be an educated guess on their part. More so, they haven't given any kind of dimensions or anything like that, and that could be because they don't know themselves. They just know how they want their grip to look, and then when Nintendo officially reveals the Switch 2, which is confirmed to be before March 31st, that's when Satisfy can nail down all of the dimensions and things like that for themselves. So there's not really much risk for them to announce something like this early. What I was going to tell you all right now, though, is that if you like Switch grips, as I do, I actually use a Switch grip for my Switch OLED, I'd actually recommend Skull & Co. over Satisfy. I just think it feels better, and there's also more customization involved. Just kind of throwing that out there before you pre-order this thing, but no. I don't look at this rumor as any kind of release window confirmation. I think that this is more of a publicity stunt than anything else, though at the end of the day, they might be correct because I think this is kind of an educated guess based on all of the different rumors that we've already heard. Anyways, though, that's going to be it for this episode, but until next time, make sure to hit that subscribe button, and peace out.